fascination early in life with the self-opening door at the grocery store. The shopper would step on a small area in front of the door, and in response to pressure sensors that lay beneath a rubber mat, the door would magically swing open. Somewhere in there, pressure-sensitive mats were replaced with light-sensitive electric eye. The door would sense the figure of a person approaching, which would trigger the opening. Cool technology, man moving forward. On January 16th, 1979, the patent for the first self-flushing toilet was applied for. Somewhere in the late 1980s, they began to apply this technology to public bathroom facilities. It is from that point that I draw the decline of Western civilization. There is a first time for everything, but my first time for that something may well be years apart from yours. And yet each of us has that first time. For those of a certain age, there was a moment in which everything changed. If you were born after 1990, you probably don't even imagine that this might have been a startling innovation. But one day, you walk into the bathroom, and rather than handles for flushing, there is a photoelectric device. An electric eye. And there you realize an electric eye is going to watch you pee. There is no chance that in that moment your head does not explode. Quickly you reassure yourself that the device probably only needs to generally sense that there is a body somehow interrupting the passage of light in front of the sensor. But that is not the first place that your mind goes. And if your brain is anything like mine, the working out of this little electrophysical math problem does not actually relieve your distress in any significant way. Just because there is only so much data that the electric eye actually needs to collect in order to function, does not mean that it has been scrupulously constructed to collect only that much information. Nor do we have any assurance that once this information is collected, it is somehow disposed of, washed away, flushed from the collected index of history. This line of thinking takes us into the mind and motives of the inventors of these valves, and we do that extra bit of math to realize that, well, if some pervy toilet engineer had put this rigmarole in place for the express purpose of taking a lurid gander at my private parts, then someone, somewhere along the line, in the design, regulatory, installation, manufacture, distribution process would certainly have noticed and raised a red flag. But even if this were so, that does not mean that some self-starter, some freewheeling, entrepreneurial inventor of mechanical devices could not have disassembled said flushing meters and reassembled them with a video recording device and relay mechanism to upload photos of my special business in the midst of one of its most intimate processes to an unknown photo stream. Of course, the phrase photo stream had not been coined at this particular point, but if it had. So yes, eventually and ultimately, we dismiss this line of thinking as simple, paranoid fantasy. But it remains a paranoid fantasy that we cannot disprove. Once we've accepted the possibility of renegade disassemblers of auto-flush valves, then we must, to whatever tiny degree, every time we step up to a urinal thereafter, make the conscious choice that yes, okay, while this paranoid fantasy is theoretically possible, it is probably not true. It is permissible, in spite of everything that I have been taught since childhood, to relinquish that tiny hold of my privacy and or dignity for the sake of going. It is a Rubicon of sorts. And if we do not stop for this, then for what ultimately would because once we have gotten there, once we have sacrificed 100% certainty that our personal uniqueness is not being transformed into the featured act of somebody's distasteful fantasy, then we have, to whatever tiny degree, released ownership. Our most personal part, our most private thing, might well be living out a separate existence somewhere out there in the cold and shriveling universe. Which means that, having in the 7-Eleven are no big deal, which means that the cameras in the elevator, in the clothing store, the ATM, the toll booth, the traffic light, cameras in the gas station, in the school, on your computer, in your cell phone, global positioning signals transmitted from your cell phone, cameras in the airport that take naked photos of you through your clothes, cameras in the sky, cameras in those drone things, cameras in the missiles projected from those drone things onto the heads of those unfortunate pedestrians who walk beneath them. Zoom lens, ultraviolet, infrared cameras in those unmanned aerial vehicles. That's the preferred phrase. See-through imaging in those UAVs that sees through ceilings and walls by means of synthetic aperture radar. Drones in Pakistan, drones in Mexico to win the drug war, drones that the Mesa County, Colorado Police Department obtained FAA permission to fly wherever they want to in the United States. Most of us naively believe that we are caught on camera, say 3-4 times a day. If you live in this city, you are caught on camera an average of 75 times per day. Once that number goes up, it does not move back down. In London, the average citizen is caught about 300 times a day. Of course, we'll never go that far. There are tribes in Africa that do not allow you to take their picture. They believe it steals a piece of their soul. The Association for Unmanned Vehicle Systems International is a lobbying group that has a happy interest in seeing drones everywhere, pressuring states to open up corridors of drone-optional zones where drones may fly in naked delight over consenting skies. There are applications pending for drones to fly over football stadia, for drones to issue traffic tickets. Drones have mission creep. Creeps have mission drones. Drones are the tools of cowards, the very sort of whom, back in the day of the wild, wild west, would have been publicly shamed and humiliated for shooting a man in the back. I'm so glad we've let go of that moral code. Drones can observe sex acts. Drones will, rest assured, observe sex acts. Drones can monitor people of unpopular color, and they will say, throw down your weapon, you have 30 seconds to comply. Drones are the perfect tools for the invasion of the airspace of sovereign nations, and isn't it good that in the history of mankind, no weapon system ever developed by any given country was ever matched or improved upon by any other country who knew a good thing when they saw one, or who had the phone number of the manufacturer. Corporations are people, my friend. I draw the date back to January 16, 1979. That was the day, to whatever tiny degree, we released ownership. Somebody put it there, somebody who had much more authority in such matters than me.